What's going on, you guys? Welcome back to the Neighborhood Podcast. I'm one of the hosts of the podcast, Kevin Valentin.
And I'm the other host of the podcast. My name is Kyle Dabro. Kev, we are back in the booth, baby. I know it's been a minute, but I gotta ask straight up, dude, how was your Christmas? I know you had a lot to
Chris,
do this past
Christmas is
weekend.
good, man. Got to go up to Georgia, Greensboro, Georgia, if I'm not mistaken, with my girl and her parents and brother. Got to experience the cold yet again, and as Kyle and I have talked about, it is beautiful to just experience just that brisk cold weather once again, especially with us living in Florida, being born and raised from the Northeast. So just felt a little good to kind of, I guess, shake off a little bit of the cold rust, if you know what I mean. So that was super fun. Just got to get away from Florida, really get to experience a different place. So I loved it, bro. What about you?
Bro, it was great. It was just a really laid back Christmas this year. I got to spend a lot of time with my family. Excuse me. I got to spend some time with my grandparents. Like overall, bro, it was just a great Christmas holiday, and it was kind of nice just because I think this week I've only had to work 4 days simply just because I had the Sunday and the Monday off, and typically those are days I work with Amazon. So honestly, it was kind of nice. So now I get to lay back and chill. I could work for the rest of the week, and we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. But overall, bro, it was just a great Christmas, and I hope everybody that's listening had a great Christmas as well. I know it's been a minute. Honestly, I think we just decided just to kind of take a break since Kevin and I have really been running and gunning for really the last couple months with just the NFL. So we were thinking about doing an episode earlier this week, but I mean, there wasn't really too much that went on in the NFL that was like major as far as consequences were concerned. Um, and even with the power rankings, I don't even think our power rankings really would have changed if I'd put out a short. Um, Things really didn't change that much for me based off of what I saw last week in the NFL. But going into this week, we got a lot to cover. We are coming to the end of the uh, regular season in the NFL. Kev, it's amazing how fast the season goes by. I mean, I remember we started this back in August and we were talking about who was going to win the divisions, and now it's the end of the year. We're going into 2023, and we still got a lot left to go with the NFL. But it's just crazy how fast the NFL season is just went by, and we're at the end. It's crazy.
Time flies, bro, especially when you're enjoying yourself and, we're participating, or should I say we're watching, in our opinion, the greatest sport ever. So, I mean, it's always going to fly when you're having a good time. But, man, we got a packed agenda for you guys. Again, hoping everybody had an incredible holiday. Hopefully, everybody is going to have an incredible New Year's this weekend. Let's just stay safe and let's just lock into these games and lock into the sports that are coming into the world in the next couple of days. So, starting off first, we're going to go over the Dolphins and Patriots game. Both teams are looking to fight for their right to compete in the playoffs this year. Tua is I'm saying hopefully for his health wise is going to be officially ruled out with another concussion, and the Patriots will have an opportunity to win this game and potentially seal their fate into a wild card berth over the next 2 weeks with a win at Miami, or excuse me, with a win in Foxborough, potentially. Then we're going to go into Kyle's boy, who has an opportunity to win the division in the NFC South, and that's going to be the Panthers going up against the Buccaneers. Obviously, the Buccaneers win in the last two drives of the game against Arizona, and I mean the Panthers just find ways to, I guess, stay relevant. I mean they came out of nowhere and they beat a hot Detroit team, and that was just a complete shock for not only me but Kyle as well. And both teams are looking to at least figure out who the hell's going to come out of this horrible division. So this game is pivotal for the sake of the NFC South, but nobody else in reality. Then we're going to go into two games that are going to have a little bit more weight here. Well, not necessarily two. The game after this one's got a little bit more, but the Jets and the Seahawks, both at 7-8, are looking to, I guess, fight for their right to compete in the playoffs as well. I mean, the Seahawks, they continue to lose games when they need to win them. The Jets, they lost two straight with Zach Wilson at the helm. Not a surprise. Mike White makes his return, so we will see if both of these teams can find a way to continue to, I guess, control their own destiny and catapult themselves into a wild card berth. So that game will be very interesting. A lot riding on that one for those individual teams. And then the next game of the week, Joseph Burrow goes up against, obviously, Josh Allen and the Buffalo Bills. Both teams are looking to stay competitive, not only to, well, actually, they both won their divisions already, if I'm not mistaken. So actually, both teams are just looking to compete for the top seed in the AFC and home field advantage throughout the playoffs. So that's going to be huge. Both MVP candidates in the quarterbacks there. Both have great teams. Solid defenses as well. So we look forward to just watching that entertainment on Monday night. And then we're going to transition into J.J. Watt announcing his retirement from the NFL this week. He has played in this league for about 11 years, and the dominant force that he has been has just been nothing short of incredible. A Hall of Fame resume, Hall of Fame career, an incredible person, a newly found parent. He just had his son, I believe, 2-3 months ago, so he's going to be able to focus on that dad life. But left behind a little bit of a legacy as well. I mean, TJ is going to be an incredible player in this league for a long time if he can remain healthy with the Steelers. So the Watt name will continue in this league for at least the next 5 to 10 years, hopefully, if TJ can remain healthy. And then on some more, I guess, sadder news or real news, should I say, the king of soccer, the king of the beautiful game, as some would say, Pelé, the Brazilian native, the World Cup champion 3 times for Brazil, has passed away, unfortunately, at the age of 82. So Kyle and I will talk a little bit about him and his legacy and what he left behind and what he means to the game of football. So, again, like we said, a packed agenda for you guys, a lot to talk about. So let's just kind of get right into it. Kyle,
There you go, Kev.
sorry about that. The missus was probably calling me on her way home. So I just lost my train of thought. Kyle, we're going to pivot this one to you. My bad. We're going to go this way. She threw off my whole mojo. I swear to God.
No,
Women
you're
be
good.
doing that shit. Women
No,
be
you're
doing that
good.
shit, bro.
No,
Oh,
we
man.
got the Patriots and the Dolphins. Did you mention the best of and the worst of?
I did not actually. My apologies. I didn't know if you wanted to take that one. I just completely had a
No,
brain fart there once again.
no, that one's gonna be pretty simple, you guys. Essentially, what we'll do is when we wrap up the episode, we're basically just gonna go who we think are the best performers from this past year since 2022 is wrapping up, and then unfortunately on the other side of the coin, we got to talk about who we think was the worst performers or who were the worst performers that we saw in 2022. So that'll just be kind of something fun where we just wrap up the episode and we just kind of go over the best and the worst of 2022. But that's pretty much it, Kev. So the floor is yours on this setup for the Patriots and the Dolphins game this weekend.
Yeah. So, with the Dolphins and Patriots, I mean, Miami is 8-7. They have been absolutely faltering the last 3 or 4 weeks. The Patriots up and down and up and down, and I mean, somehow, some way, both teams are sitting here looking at a wild card spot, like within, I guess, within their grasp, so to speak. But Teddy Bridgewater is expected to start this game. So, Kyle, with you as the native Patriots fan, and with this game having so much weight for the playoff berth for both teams, who do you think is going to win this game and why?
Kev, I'm gonna go with the Patriots on this one, and it is simply just because that Tua's not going to be able to play this weekend because of those concussion symptoms that he's been dealing with since last week's game. And honestly, I think from his perspective, it's probably better that he sits out this game just because that concussion that he suffered this past weekend, that's his second one this year. I mean, the first one that he suffered against the Bengals was bad enough, and then you have this one on top of that. It's just he has just been riddled with that concussion bug this year, and it's unfortunate because Tua really this year has been solid, but these last couple of weeks the Dolphins have taken a major step back when they looked like they were a team that could have potentially been in first place or at least could have been competitive for that number one spot in the AFC East. It's just they've taken some steps back. They've lost some games, some close, some were absolute blowouts. But I think in this game, I just don't really have a lot of faith in the Dolphins to be able to go up against this Patriots defense to put up enough points with Teddy Bridgewater leading the way. And there have been times where Teddy's gotten some starts this year, coming in relief for Tua when Tua was dealing with an injury. And didn't really do anything to excite me. Didn't really do anything that would put the Dolphins in a position where they could win the game outright. And going up against a defense like the Patriots, granted the Patriots have had their issues this year. They're a sub 500 team, but it has not been because of their defense. Their defense has been phenomenal this year. They've been able to get a lot of turnovers. I believe they're top 5 in turnovers this year, and they're top 2 with the number of sacks that they've been able to generate. So that's something that the Dolphins are going to have to contend with this weekend with a backup quarterback with Teddy Bridgewater. And if Teddy's not careful, I think Teddy can put the ball into harm's way and could potentially get picked off by that Patriots defense. And not only that, this Patriots defense has been showing the last couple of weeks that not only can they turn the ball over, but they can instantly convert it into points by getting a pick six or a scoop and score. They've been doing that consistently all year. And there's a very good chance that they could do it once again. They were able to do it against Joe Burrow last week with Marcus Jones taking a pick six back against um, the Bengals last week. And I think in this game, that could happen. I don't know who it's going to be specifically, but nonetheless, that outcome could happen. But I'm not going to say that the Patriots are going to win this one in convincing fashion because when it comes to the Patriots offense, it's been ugly this year. The play calling has been atrocious. Matt Patricia, in his first year as the offensive play caller for the Patriots, has been a major letdown, and it's been visible with the amount of frustration that Mac Jones has been displaying towards the offensive coaching staff this year. To be quite honest with you, Kev, I don't think that Mac Jones is a bad quarterback. I think that he has the potential to be a really good quarterback in the NFL. But you could tell that his regression this year is not based off of what he's done specifically with just his decision making. I think a lot of it's been predicated on just the inadequacy or the incompetence that the Patriots coaching staff has put him in as far as the position is concerned. Now, that's not to say that Mac Jones doesn't make mistakes and he's, perfect in that regard. He's made plenty of mistakes, but I just don't think that the Patriots offensive coaching staff has put him in a position to win consistently this year. And, the numbers kind of reflect that. He's kind of had a down year this year compared to last year and his rookie year. But I think he will be able to do enough against this Dolphins defense. I'm not saying that he's going to go out there and light it up like Patrick Mahomes, where he puts 3 or 4 touchdowns on the board. But if he could just play consistent football, if he plays within himself, completes around 65 to 70% of his passes, which he's been doing somewhat consistently this year. In some cases, there have been some games where he can complete like 85 to 90% of his passes. So I think there's definitely some possibilities for him to definitely get on the scoreboard, maybe hitting up guys like Jacoby Myers or Kendrick Bourne or Hunter Henry. I think that there's definitely going to be opportunities available for him. It's just, what is the play calling situation going to be like for the Patriots this week? And I think that's what it's going to come down to. If the Patriots play calling is on point, or if it's just consistent in moving the offense forward, I think the Patriots win this game. I'm not going to say it's going to be a blowout, but I think they're going to win somewhat comfortably in this game. I think this is really one of those games where I think the Patriots defense is the primary factor in why the Patriots win this game, and it's not going to be the offense. I think the offense just can't turn the ball over, as far as I'm concerned. If they do that, this game's going to be a lot more competitive, and there could be a slight chance that the Dolphins win this game with Teddy coming in as the backup if the Patriots are turning the ball over and the play calling is inconsistent from Matt Patricia. So overall, for me, with the way that I see this game playing out, I'm going to go with the Patriots winning this one by the score of, let's say, 24-17. I think this is going to be a relatively low-scoring game just because I don't think there's going to be a lot of points scored from either offense, just because Teddy's the backup for the Dolphins. You got Mac running the Patriots offense, and the issues on the offense have really been a big impediment for them this year. But I think the main difference in this one is going to be the Patriots forcing some turnovers against the Dolphins. And I think the Patriots are going to capitalize on that to win this one by a 1-touchdown score. So that's how I have this game playing out. Kev, the floor is yours.
I couldn't agree more. Tua's absence is going to be pivotal. And not to slate Teddy Bridgewater, but he is no Tua Tagovailoa, let's be honest. And I mean, with the capabilities of Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and that offense, we know that they are best suited and at their highest capacity when Tua is behind and under center. Miami's defense also hasn't been playing great the last couple of games. I mean, if you look at it, they've allowed 33, 23, 32, and 26 points in their last 4. They have not been able to stop a nosebleed. And I know that the offense hasn't been really giving them many opportunities to at least get rest or to, make their small but quantitative defensive stops anything meaningful. But when the offense is going out there getting 3 and outs or only getting field goals, the defense is consistently on the field like we've talked about all season. And they just don't look competent, honestly. They just don't look like they are able to go out there and create stops, which is what the offense needs in order to get back on the field, get into a rhythm. And unfortunately, with the Patriots defense being as good as they are, I think that they are going to struggle with them being on their second string quarterback. And then, of course, with their inability to run the football. We know that Mostert was able to get a lot of yards against Buffalo, but for whatever reason, they abandoned the run game early against Green Bay. Mostert and Wilson were just kind of like left behind, and it was just completely confusing. So Mike McDaniels has been a great offensive-minded coach, but in terms of having to rotate through quarterbacks, having to go through consistent changes on the offense as well, he does look like he is struggling as well as the team as a whole, whereas Bill Belichick, he's been in the same MO, same mindset. It's going to be Mac Jones. We're going to run the football, and we're going to play good defense. And this is going to be in Foxborough, so I am hoping that this is going to be at least competitive. I would like the Dolphins to come out on top for the sake of my brother, but I just don't see that happening. So I'm going to agree with Kyle. I think this is going to be a lower scoring game because the offenses of both teams are pretty lackluster recently, especially for Miami. But with the big playability of Tyreek Hill and Waddle, I'm not going to go out there and say Miami gets blown out just because it takes one deep pass to get right back into a game. So I'm going to say that this is going to be not a 3-point game. I'll say this is probably going to be 7. I got the Patriots 24-17 here, but the Dolphins put up a fight in the end. I'm hoping that they make it competitive, man, because it would just be a shame to go out and lose 5 in a row to end the season after last year, then winning 7 in a row to end their season. So it would just be a tale of 2 different years, and it just wouldn't be a good look for Miami as a whole.
And I guess the question that kind of remains at this point, if we had the Patriots winning this game, is both teams would be 8-8 going into the last week of the season. And if we look at the matchups between both teams going into that week 18 matchup, we would have the Patriots going up against the Bills, and then we'd have the Dolphins going up against the Jets. So this would be just a divisional matchup for both teams, potentially trying to fight for that last wild card spot going into the playoffs this year. And I guess if I had to give you this one, who do you think would get that last wild card spot between the Patriots and the Dolphins? Would it be New England or would it be Miami?
Dude, I don't know. I really can't. And that's assuming that New York loses this week too, because they would both be all three of them would be 8-8-8, or eight and
Eight,
eight
eight,
all the way
eight, yeah.
across the board. Yeah. So that's a tough one, bro. I really don't know. That's the AFC East is a complete toss up at this point. Who would have thought 3 teams would be literally deadlocked at the same record, assuming that this is how it would end in terms of Miami losing, New England winning, and the Jets winning? Dude, that would be. I don't even know if that's ever been like I don't even know if that's ever happened before in our lifetime. That's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, there's probably been some log jams that we've probably may have not paid attention to in the past. Um, but I will say, when you look at all those 3 teams in the AFC East with the Jets, Patriots, and the Dolphins, I think when it comes to the Jets, I just don't have a lot of faith with them, just based on with the inconsistency at the quarterback position. I know Mike White potentially is going to get that starting job back now that Zach is pretty much done.
It's been tossed to the side.
Yeah, I mean, he's already inactive for this upcoming week, so I think his tenure in New York is done at this point. But when it comes to the Dolphins, I think the level of their fall off the second half of the year has been so striking. I mean, Kev, I think it was pretty safe to say that halfway through the season, Tua was at the top of the MVP discussion. I mean, I saw multiple reports, whether it was like from Bleacher Report or ESPN or SportsCenter, where they had Tua as their midseason MVP with how well that the Dolphins were playing. And in the second half, it's just all unraveled. And the fact that
They've played good
the
competition though. That's the thing.
the fact that their playoff chances have gone from basically damn near locked up to where now it's a question mark is kind of astonishing. And they got to be careful. I mean, if they win this game against the Patriots, I think it locks it up for them. They just can't falter in the last week. But I mean, overall, I just can't believe that they faltered this much to where their playoff chances are really, honestly, kind of hanging on by a thread. Because I think as of right now, they have the last wild card spot. I think they're the 7th seed as of right now, and then the Patriots and the Jets have the same record, but the Patriots have the tiebreaker over the Jets because the Patriots swept the divisional series against the Jets this year. So,
Right.
yeah, when it comes to the Patriots, man, I mean, they've got their chances, but I mean, there's still some other teams that we have to kind of consider in this, I guess, this formula as well. You got the Steelers are still kind of in that hunt as well. They're sitting at a 7-8 record. They play against the Ravens this weekend. The Raiders technically have a chance, but I mean, they're at 6-9. They would have to get a lot of help. I just don't think that that's going to happen. Actually, I think they might already be eliminated from the playoffs at this point. Or if they are eliminated, it would be because based off of what happens this weekend. But I mean, overall, I mean, the way that this last seed for the wild card is going to go down, it's just going to be absolutely nuts. It's just we'll kind of see where it goes. In these
Yeah,
last
because
couple weeks.
it's the only spot left in the AFC because Baltimore locked up a wild card spot, and
Yep,
then with the Chargers winning on Monday night against the Colts, they locked up their playoff chances as well. So
yeah,
this is legit for all the marbles. This last spot is
it's
it.
critical. Yeah, it's critical. I mean, I mean, not only that. I mean, I, to me, I think this is really a three-team race at this point. I think it just comes down to the Patriots, the Dolphins, and probably the Steelers. You could maybe throw the Jets in there. We'll see what happens with them. They would have to get some help from the Patriots. The Patriots would have to lose a couple games. There's a chance that the Patriots could lose in Week 18 to Buffalo, because Buffalo could potentially still be playing for that number one seed. So
True.
Patriots are going to have a tough road, but the way that I see it is, I think this is legitimately going to be a three-team race going into the last week of the year. But it's going to be interesting to see how this all plays out. But Kev, we gotta kick it over to the NFC. We got a pretty big divisional matchup this weekend between I think we got the Bucks and the Panthers to talk about. So I'll let you take this one from here.
This is another weird one, man. I mean, the Panthers are 6-9. The Bucks are 8-7. They're both fighting for a division title, which would, in theory, if the Bucks were to lose this game, this would legitimately end in an under 500 team getting into the postseason as a 4 seed. So, Kyle, I mean, I'll just kind of throw it your way, man. Who in the hell is coming out of this game and why?
I'm gonna go with the Bucks on this one, and Kev, I don't have a lot of faith in this one in any way, shape, or form. Kev, we're coming off of the heels of probably one of the worst games that the Bucks have won this year. Kev, they damn near lost to a third string quarterback with the Arizona Cardinals last week, and it took them to overtime to get them this win against the Cardinals last week. I mean, that should have been a relatively comfortable win for Tampa, but the fact that it was that competitive, and to be quite honest with you, Tampa looked like they were going to lose that game just because up until what I would consider the last 5 to 6 minutes of the game, Tampa had 3 points. They just can't generate any offense consistently. And if they do, it's probably going to come with a consequence of somebody holding on the offensive side of the ball. And then that just sets them back. There's no rhythm, there's no consistency. The offense has just been, as far as I'm concerned, they've just been an absolute tailspin this year. And it's simply just because the offensive line just continues to be the main issue with this offense. I know a lot of people will point to Brady with him having a down year, and it is true that he's having a down year. The way that I see it with Tampa is their offense is so sped up this year. Just the timing is not there. The chemistry is just all out of sorts, and it's really predicated on what the offensive line has not been able to do this year, which is produce effective football. And not only that, they're one of the worst teams of running the football, but I believe they only average like 70, 75 yards a game rushing the ball. So it really is just kind of a one-trick pony with Tampa's offense, and it's basically Brady or die, and that's pretty much how they've been running this year, and it's largely been unsuccessful this year. But the way that I see this game playing out, I think that Carolina is going to keep this game competitive. And in the first matchup where we saw these two teams go at it, granted that was a couple months ago, Carolina smacked them up. Carolina played effective football against Tampa. Uh, they had kind of their own situation at the quarterback spot in that game, but overall, they were able to do enough to be able to put points on the board and just really keep Tampa at bay with not being able to put up points in the process. And I think if Carolina is able to win this football game, it will be on the heels of their defense, limiting Tom Brady and the Tampa offense to basically a mediocre performance. And I think that there's a very good chance that they could be able to do that. I think that when it comes to Carolina, they know Tampa very well. These two teams play twice a year. And based off of the first performance, it may seem like Carolina may have the advantage when it comes to slowing down this Bucks offense with how bad Tampa has looked this year. But I think Tampa's going to learn from their mistakes in the first matchup. And that first matchup was a long time ago. And I imagine Tampa's going to look at that film and they're probably going to be disgusted of what they saw and probably learn from their mistakes. This game is played in Tampa, so I imagine that Tampa's going to try to generate some sort of electricity. The fans got to step up and try to give Tampa some sort of life in that game. And, maybe they'll get it from the fans in this one. But overall, I think Tampa wins this one by the skin of their teeth. I think Tampa wins this one probably around the score of like, oh God, Kev, I don't know. Score might be like 17-13. I think this is going to be a very low scoring affair. I think Tampa's going to struggle offensively until the fourth quarter. And I think they may be able to make enough plays at the end to get across the finish line here. I think this is going to be an extremely defensive battle. I think Tampa's defense is going to keep the Bucks in it, and that's really been the only reason why they've been competitive this year. Is that defense has been playing excellent football as far as I've seen it, and I think that's the only reason why that they're still competitive to win the NFC South at this point. Because had that defense faltered in any of their close wins this past season, I think they would be out of the playoffs at this point. But you got to give credit where credit is due. Tampa's defense has stepped up. I think they will step up once again against the Panthers in this one, albeit I don't think it's going to be in convincing fashion as far as the team is concerned with winning this game. But I think Tampa goes out there, they get the dub this upcoming weekend, and I think they clinch the division. But it's going to be by the skin of their teeth as far as I see it, Kev. The floor is yours on this one.
I'm actually going to go the complete opposite. I'm going Carolina, and it's no slate or disrespect to Tom Brady, but the way that this team has been playing up and down and not really stepping up until pretty much like the last few minutes of games, to me, it's kind of just like disrespectful. It's like, where has this been all season? Where is that where has that offensive capability been all game? I don't know why it takes a team 50 minutes out of 60 to kind of get it together finally in that last couple of minutes, like I said. So I truthfully don't comprehend what's going on in Tampa. Tom has been turning the ball over a little bit too much recently. And I know that that's in large part because of the offensive line issues and the lack of being able to run the football. But I'm going to go with Carolina because I think that Carolina had a pretty big game against Detroit last week, showing like they can beat good football teams. And Detroit was on a 6 or 7 game win streak at one point. So that was absolutely huge for them to not only beat them, but blow them out. And what they were able to do to Detroit on the defensive side as well was pretty significant for me to keep one of the hotter offenses in the NFL under wraps. And then you go and you kind of talk about what Sam Darnold's been able to bring to the table since he's been inserted back into the starting lineup, and it's been nothing short of incredible. I mean, nobody thought that he would be able to do what he's been doing since he's been back from injury, and yet here we are. Sam Darnold is diming it up. He's tossing pretty much touchdown after touchdown recently, and I know his numbers aren't exponential, but again, with what they have going for them in Carolina, I would say that he is doing just enough. And Chuba Howard has been having a pretty good season when he's been actually given the opportunity to, outside of Donta Foreman and whatever have you. So I'm going to say that Carolina remains relevant. I mean, what they did to Tampa the last time they played was nothing short of embarrassing for the Buccaneers. And I know that Tom Brady is going to remember that. I know that he typically does well in the second rekindle or rematch, not rekindle, in the rematch against division opponents. But for whatever reason, man, I think the Bucs struggle. I think that Carolina gets hot, and I think that Sam Darnold can potentially bring a division title to the Carolina Panthers for the first time since 2015 when they went to the Super Bowl, which is just crazy to me to think that they've been that bad since. But I mean, here we are. And yeah, no, I got Carolina all day in this one. I don't really have a score because I don't know enough about both teams to kind of give a prediction. And if Tampa's offense is anything like it has been all year, this game is probably going to be well under the 20s because Tampa can't move the ball downfield until the fourth quarter. So we'll see what happens. But I got Carolina moving to 7-9.
Kev, I get it. It's not as if I don't understand it. That first matchup, Panthers smacked them up. And
Was that 21-3, 28-3?
it was a beatdown. It was an absolute beatdown. I mean, granted, it wasn't like the Panthers went out there and like won the game by like 30 points. But it
No.
felt like it. It felt like it based off of what that defense was doing against Tampa. And Tampa couldn't get any offense generated whatsoever. So I imagine, for Tampa watching that film earlier this week, it's probably tough. That's kind of putting it mildly. But there was something that I wanted to kind of hit on. And it was a video that I saw post game in the Bucks locker room after they beat the Cardinals. And it had to do with the body language of the team in the locker room when they were getting addressed by. I'm drawing a blank here. Who's the head coach for the Bucks? I can't believe I'm drawing
Oh,
an absolute.
Bowles.
Yeah, Todd Bowles.
Todd.
Thank you. I'm watching Todd Bowles give like kind of like the post game locker room speech, and I'm gonna be honest with you, Kev. He doesn't inspire the players. A lot of the guys that are just listening to him speak, they're just kind of like ho hum, like they're gonna listen to what he says, but there's no energy, there's no excitement that's generated based off of what he's saying. It's not that Todd Bowles is a bad guy or anything like that. I just don't see Todd Bowles as the right coach to energize a group of men like that in the locker room. And you could tell that when it comes to the Bucks specifically, a lot of the motivation and the energy that they're getting from the team is mostly coming from players like maybe like Mike Evans or Devin White. Like those guys are the vocal leaders in that locker room. And I think they're feeding off of the energy from those guys in particular, just because they're not getting it from their head coach. And I think one of the things that maybe we have to start taking into account more often is, when it comes to head coaches, can you be able to energize the players in that locker room to be able to run through a brick wall for you? And I think when you look at a lot of teams, even if those teams are relatively struggling, I'll give you an example. Look at Dan Campbell with the Lions. I'm fully convinced
Love
that
him.
that team will run through a brick wall for him. Is Dan Campbell the best coach in NFL history?
No.
No. But I think a lot of players back him based off of just the energy that he brings. And I just think that the environment that he creates just based off of his presence alone, I think it's infectious. And I think it really gets the team riled up in a position where they can go out and they really are convinced of, let's go out there for our coach to win this one. Ron Rivera is probably another guy like that. Ron Rivera doesn't seem like to me like a big like rah type of guy, but I think in any given moment, I think he just knows the right thing to say at the right time and kind of the right tone as well. And I think that just that type of energy or the environment that they bring into that locker room, I think it's pivotal. But I just don't think that Todd Bowles is that guy. I think Todd Bowles' bread and butter is being a defensive coordinator. When it comes to his ability to head coach, it's not strong. And honestly, the track record kind of shows it at this point. But I think when it comes to his defensive capabilities as a coordinator, Kev, he's elite. He's an elite defensive coordinator, and I can't slight him on that in any way, shape, or form. But as a head coach, you have to be able to really rally the troops. And I just don't think that he's able to effectively do that. And it's not because he's a bad guy or anything like that. I just think he's kind of like just a reserved type of individual. I don't think he's somebody that's really like an extrovert or someone like that, where he really like goes out of his way to really get that team riled up. And like I said, not that he's a bad guy. It's just
Facts.
he's just not maybe the right person to lead that team. And you
That's
could
just not
tell
his
based
thing.
on you could tell by the body language of the players that they just don't think that he's that guy to lead that team based on just their overall body language. It kind of speaks for itself. But that was something that I wanted to mention before we go into our next game. But nonetheless, I think this Bucks and Panthers game, I think it's just going to be a grind. It's going to be an ugly game to watch as far as I'm concerned. And most Bucks games this year have been pretty difficult to watch.
You ain't
But
lying.
with that said, we're going to focus on a pretty decent matchup that we have that has some pretty big playoff implications for both teams here. We've got the New York Jets going up against the Seattle Seahawks. To give you guys a quick roundup of where both teams stand right now, the Jets and the Seahawks have a 7-8 record. Both teams are still trying to vie for a wild card spot, with the Jets trying to do it in the AFC, with the Seahawks trying to do it in the NFC. I would say that the path for both teams to get to the playoffs is a little bit challenging at this point, but nonetheless, there is a pathway forward for both of these teams. And as far as I see it, this is a do or die game for both teams going into this Week 17 matchup that's going to take place in Seattle. So, Kev, to kick this one to you, we've got the New York Jets and the Seattle Seahawks going at it in a pivotal game that has playoff ramifications for both teams here. Who do you think is going to come out on top and why?
I got to go with Mike White. I got to go with the Jets. I think that defense is elite. I think that defense has shown time and time again, despite whoever's under center, they're going to keep this team in relative competition. And I think that with Mike White returning, that is going to put a spark into the offense. It's going to put a spark into the defense to say that we need to win this, not only for our chances to go to the playoffs, but Mike is out here playing with potentially fractured ribs. He's coming out here and he is just giving everything he possibly can, despite Zach Wilson throwing games away because of how bad he is. The Jets are in this position because their defense has kept them at the record that they are. The defense has kept them in games, should I say, not the record that they are. The only reason they have 7 wins is largely in part because of their ability to limit opponents' offenses. And with Mike coming back, who can expand that offensive playbook and has earned the respect of the locker room, I think that they're going to play 10 times harder for him. And at the same time, I mean, Seattle was at 1.6-3. They are 1-5 in their last 6 games. And their defense is in large part to that. So when you look at their last 6, They lost to the Buccaneers 21-16. They allowed 40 points against the Raiders. They allowed 23 points against the Rams in a win. They allowed 30 points against the Rams, 21 against the Niners, 24 against the Chiefs. Like they're not able to get it done on the defensive side of the ball. And the offense has been very, very lackluster outside of a couple of games where they were able to score over 20. Geno Smith still leads the league in completion percentage, but for whatever reason, this offensive line is crumbling. I saw a big chunk of that Chiefs game, and that Chiefs defense was able to get to him time and time again, forcing him to make mistakes and errant passes. And I mean, despite DK Metcalf and a couple of the receivers going out there practicing shirtless in negative 10-degree weather, they were not able to do much, if anything, on the offensive side. Kenneth Walker was limited. Tyler Lockett's been out for the last couple of weeks with surgery on his left hand. He was a limited return to practice today, so he may play on Sunday, but that is still to be determined. But the Seahawks, man, they've just kind of fallen apart. They've fallen. That's not even a word. They have fallen apart. They have literally just come apart at the seams, and it's at the worst time of the season. There have been a couple of teams that we've already talked about just today. I mean, the Dolphins being number one that have just completely lost every ounce of momentum that they had early on. And at one point, we were talking about the Seahawks to come out on top of the NFC West. San Francisco comes out of nowhere and just storms the castle, and they're on like a 7-game win streak of their own. But that's neither here nor there. I just don't have faith that the Seahawks are going to be able to move the ball offensively with the Jets defense. I don't think that the Jets are going to allow DK Metcalf and potentially Tyler Lockett to get into any kind of rhythm. And then with Kenneth Walker being limited in practice with his own injury, he may be limited to what he can put on the field as well in this cold weather that's going to be in Seattle. So we'll see what happens. I got the Jets winning in a convincing fashion, probably by 10 or so points. I got this at like, I don't know, 27-17, maybe even 30-17, something of that magnitude. It's unfortunate because I like Geno Smith. I think he's going to get a decent payday come this offseason for about 2-3 years maybe to take over an NFL franchise. But it's sad. But like I said, I got Mike White and the Jets taking this one for sure, and hopefully trying to fight for a playoff spot.
Kev, I'm in full agreement with you on this one. It's just based off of what that Jets defense can present against the Seattle offense. When it comes to Seattle, they've just completely faltered the last couple of weeks. I believe they're on a 3-game losing streak right now. And like you said, Kev, just to kind of piggyback off the point that you made about Seattle, just a month and a half ago was in prime position to win the NFC West, and they've just completely fallen apart. I mean, we've gone from Geno Smith being potentially comeback player of the year. We had Pete Carroll potentially being a coach of the year candidate, to where now this team is sub 500 and their playoff chances have just completely eroded away. And, going up against a defense like this in the Jets, I don't think it's going to be easy for them. I think they're going to fall short in this one. When it comes to the Jets, I think their biggest thing that they have to contend with is they have to keep Mike White upright. Mike White is coming off of a pretty significant injury that he sustained against the Bills a couple weeks ago, where Matt Milano, Kev, I think the best way to describe what Matt Milano did to Mike White was he came in like a heat-seeking missile on that hit that he knocked Mike White out of the game due to a rib injury. I know Mike White came back in that game, but you could tell that Mike was not in good form after that hit, and he relatively struggled, and I think he ended up in the hospital post-game because of those injuries that he sustained against the Bills. So when it comes to the Jets, obviously the primary factor that they have to contend with here is keeping Mike upright, and if they're able to do that against Seattle's defense, which is suspect, I think that Mike White's going to be able to move the ball up and down the field effectively. I don't know how many points that they're going to score. I don't know if it's going to be like a 30-35 point performance. I don't really see that happening, but I could definitely see the Jets putting up maybe like 20, 24, maybe 27 points on the high end. And I think that would be more than enough going up against Seattle, because when it comes to Seattle's offensive performances have just been lackluster the last couple of weeks. Like you said, Kev, I mean, they've lost 5 out of the last 6 games. They've been struggling to score the ball consistently on the offensive side of the ball. Last week, they only scored 10 points against the Chiefs. I know it was in sub-zero temperatures, and I know that probably had a major factor. But even despite that game, you could look at some of their past performances. They've just fallen short, and it's just because Geno Smith just can't get that offense rolling in the right direction. The play calling seems to be a little bit off. And obviously, you throw some turnovers in there. It's just been a bad formula for Seattle the last couple of weeks, and it's led to the result of them being a sub 500 team with 2 weeks to go until the end of the year. And as far as I see it, I just don't think Seattle's going to do enough at home to get this win to stay in playoff contention. I mean, this is a do or die game for both teams anyway. So I imagine both teams are going to be going balls to the wall to try to get this win. But I just believe that this Jets defense is elite. I know that their record doesn't show it because they're a sub 500 team, but it has not been because of the defense. The Jets defense has been the reason why that they're so competitive this year. It's really been the lackluster performances that we've seen from the offense that has held the Jets back this year. And now that Zach Wilson is more than likely done in New York after he got benched against the Jaguars last week in one of the worst performances that I've seen from him in his NFL career. I think that the Jets are going to be in a position where they're going to be motivated knowing that they're getting Mike White back in the fold. I just think that he's that guy that generates momentum. He generates energy for that offense. And I think when you have those factors combined, I think you're going to get a well-rounded effort from the Jets offense. I'm not going to say it's going to be perfect. I imagine that there's still going to be some issues. Turnover issues with the Jets has been a major concern with them fumbling the ball, having inopportune interceptions. But I think Mike White gives them the best chance to win this game. And I think he'll go out there and give an inspired performance, not just from him specifically, but I think the whole offense will just be inspired to get this win this upcoming weekend. I think it's going to be a competitive game because of the nature of both teams trying to get this win to stay alive in the playoff race. I'm going to go with the Jets on this one. I'm going to say they win by one possession. I'm going to say they win this one by the score of, let's say, 23-16. I think it will be a one possession game when it's all said and done, but the Jets will bump up to an 8-8 record, keep their playoff hopes alive, and then we'll see what happens when we get to week 18 because all hell can break loose and maybe the Jets get some help from some other teams and maybe they can find some sort of pathway forward to get that last wild card spot in the AFC. But as far as this game is concerned, I got the Jets winning this one in a close one. 23-16 is what I have it.
I mean, aside from the matchup of the game being, the battle of the line of scrimmage, who's going to hold up, it's the Seattle's offensive line as opposed to the Jets' defensive line. I'm looking at one matchup, Sauce and DK.
Mm-hmm.
Sauce is the outright favorite for Defensive Rookie of the Year. And then you go and you look at DK Metcalf, one of the most physical wide receivers we've seen in this era over the course of the last 5 to 10 years in terms of height, speed, strength. I mean, the man is just like physically just a bigger than average receiver with everything. A man that size should not be doing what he does.
He's a monster. He's an absolute
and with
monster.
Sauce, New York just came out so hard.
With Sauce Gardner. Brought the Bronx out.
With Sauce being one of the more slender, smaller corners, I'm kind of curious to see how he's going to combat a very physical receiver that's going to be posed in front of him for the pretty much length of this entire game. Because let's be frank, I mean, aside from being a rookie, the kid looks like an absolute veteran that's been doing this for years. And DK's not having the greatest season either with, obviously offensive line struggles. The offense has been struggling. I mean, he's still probably one of the best receivers in the league if you really were to consider everything that he brings to the table. But yeah, no, this is a big matchup that I really want to look into. Like, I really, really am curious to see how Sauce goes up against DK for sure.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting with Sauce going up against DK. Bro, I just had to say that just for
I
fun.
know.
But no, overall, I think this is going to be a low-scoring game, though. Like, I don't see this being like a high-scoring affair where both offenses are lighting it up simply just because I think that Jets defense is just too good. Like, I know that they haven't shown it because they haven't been winning games the last couple of weeks. I think if I look at it right now, I think the Jets have lost like 4 in a row. The Jets' last win came in the last week of November. So yeah. They're basically gone the entire month. They will go the entire month without winning a game in December, which is crazy because they were 7-4 going into the month
at one
of December.
Point, yeah.
It's crazy. It's crazy how much they faltered. And you know what the crazy thing is, Kev? When I'm looking at these defensive performances, okay, they gave up 27 points to the Vikings. They only lost that game by 5 points. Honestly, that was a game that they probably should have won because they butchered it at the end of the game with the offensive play calling. They only allowed 20 points against the Bills. On the road. It's not bad. They give up 20 points to the Lions, and then they gave up 19 points to the Jags. Kev, I'm looking at this like, these are not 30-point performances that they're giving up. Like these are winnable games that the offense could get their head out of their ass, and they just haven't been able to do it. And I think a lot of it was just Zach couldn't do it. And I know Joe's kind of stepped in time and time to fill in for relief for whoever was the quarterback at the time, but it's the offense, dude. The offense just can't get it together, and a part of it is youth. Like I don't want to like miss that point entirely. You could just tell like uh, the inopportune penalty calls, the inopportune turnovers. That was something that really kind of stood out from the Bills game in early December. But it's just the inconsistency of the offense, and it's really been the inconsistency at the quarterback position. And I think Mike has done the best job to put that team in a position to win offensively. But I don't know what it's going to be like. I know those ribs are going to still be sore and they're still going to be a little bit tender. I mean, it's only been a couple of weeks since that Bills game. And I don't know if he's still going to be 100%. I think he's going to be like maybe like 85, 90%. I don't think that he's all the way back yet.
I don't even think it's gonna be 90, bro. I mean, we're talking about ribs.
That's good. That's a lingering injury.
Yeah.
So, I mean, that was the reason why I mentioned it's like the primary factor that the Jets have to do, or one of their primary responsibilities, is to keep him upright. He can't take unnecessary hits. Because I don't know if Joe Flacco is going to be the guy that really gets that offense rolling. I know Zach ain't going to do shit. But, I mean, we'll kind of see. But nonetheless, it's going to be a big game for both teams, for the Jets and the Seahawks. So then the last game that we're going to cover for the Week 17 slate is going to be a Monday night matchup, which, to be quite honest with you, Kev, this is the game of the week. This game has major implications that are going to affect the number one seed in the AFC. We've got the Buffalo Bills going up against the Cincinnati Bengals. To give you guys a quick preview of where both teams stand right now, we've got the Buffalo Bills sitting at a 12-3 record. We got the Cincinnati Bengals sitting at an 11-4 record. The Bills have been one of the more consistent teams in the AFC the entire year. They've been consistently in the top 5 of our power rankings. The Bengals, on the other hand, have been just a surging team the last 2 months. They've been on an absolute heater since probably maybe the end of October. And they have not looked back since. I believe they're on a 7-game winning streak right now. And as far as I'm concerned, the Bengals look like they're rounding into that Super Bowl form that we saw them make last year, where they fell just a little bit short going up against the Rams in Super Bowl 56. So, Kev, nonetheless, I mean, this is going to be a great matchup. We got the Bills and the Bengals going at it, and I know this game takes place on Monday. I'm glad this game is taking place on Monday night because I think that's what it actually deserves. And I'm actually glad that ESPN is getting a primetime game of this nature, just because ESPN has been kind of hurting with their primetime games on Monday nights. So this is definitely going to be a good one. So, Kev, to kick this one to you, we've got the Buffalo Bills and the Cincinnati Bengals going at it with huge implications with the number one seed in the AFC at stake. Who do you think is going to come out on top and why?
So, I mean, let's be honest. Buffalo's on a 6-game win streak. Cincinnati's on a 7. Both of these quarterbacks are MVP favorites. I mean, Josh Allen, 4,029 yards, 32 touchdowns, 13 interceptions. Joe Burrow, 4,260 yards, 34 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Almost identical. Insane, right? 2 games left to go, but I have to go with Buffalo. Unfortunately, Cincinnati lost Lyle Collins to a torn ACL and MCL for the season. And that is one of Joe Burrow's tackles that has been keeping him upright over the course of the last couple of months. Not to mention, for whatever reason, Buffalo is actually listening to Kyle and I, and they've been running the football. Singletary had over 100 yards. James Cook had almost 100 yards. I think he had like 98 or 99. And they had over 200 yards rushing as a team combined in their last week. And they have been running the ball a lot more effectively as over the course of the last few games in terms of handing it off and not just giving it to Josh. Now, I will say that Cincinnati has been on a longer win streak, but there have been closer games on the Cincinnati side. I mean, just going back to last week, they almost choked against the Patriots. That was 22-18. They started rough against the Buccaneers. That was a 17-point game at one point. The Browns, that was a struggle early on, but it ended up becoming 23-10. The Chiefs 27-24. The Titans 20-16. The Steelers 37-30. The Panthers was the only blowout here, and then the last time they lost was against the Browns, where they gave up 32. Now the Buffalo Bills, on the other side, they have been able to separate themselves just a little bit more, not by too much, but they have been winning by bigger margins. Just last week, 35-13. They had a close game against the Dolphins, 32-29. They beat the Jets 20-12. Then you go and you beat the Patriots 24-10 in Foxborough. They had a close game on Thanksgiving against the Lions 28-25. And then their last victory after their first loss, or after their loss a couple of weeks ago, was 31-23. Buffalo's offense is moving. They've gotten healthier. They've been finding ways to capitalize and create turnovers on the defensive side. And again, they have been one of the best teams in the AFC, obviously holding the top spot in the AFC in terms of seeding as they hold the tiebreaker over the Chiefs. I know that the Bengals can be good teams. I know that Joseph Burrow can do this. I have complete and utter faith. It's just my gut and my head are both finally on the same page, and they are actually no, they're not. My gut's telling me to pick Buffalo, but my head tells me to pick Joe, and I usually go with my gut. But I just feel like the Bills are going to be a little bit too much. The loss of Lyle Collins on that offensive line is going to hurt how the offense is going to be able to move. That's going to limit what time he's going to have in that pocket to be able to throw it to those deadly receivers that we already know about in Higgins, Chase, and Boyd. And then at the end of the day, I think that Joe Burrow is probably going to get sacked about 4 to 5 times here just because of the change at offensive line. And I think that Josh Allen is going to be able to capitalize on maybe some turnovers because Joe Burrow has had a couple of turnovers the last couple of weeks as well. And I think that the Bills are going to actually move on to 13-3. Again, I hate picking against Joe. I just feel like the Bills are a little bit more prepared for this one. The Bills are going to be ready, and that injury, man, that left tackle spot, that is huge for the blind spot of a quarterback. And I don't think people understand how that's going to affect the chemistry at that offensive line and what Buffalo's going to be able to do. Now, if they had Von Miller, I would say that this game is probably going to be a rout because you just line Von on the backup all game long and see what happens. But in this case, I'm going to say that this is going to definitely still be a close one because when you have the battle of two quarterbacks like this, no lead is safe, but I have Buffalo edging them out probably by maybe 3 to 7 points. Is going to be a really, really close one. So I will definitely lean with Buffalo, and they will lock up hopefully home field advantage.
Yeah, this is an absolute toss-up for me in this one. And to be quite honest with you, I could pick either team in this game, and I could probably list a bunch of reasons why. But I'm going to agree with you on this one. I just have a little bit more faith in Buffalo than I do Cincinnati. And to be quite honest with you, Kev, even though Joe Burrow and Josh Allen are some of the best quarterbacks in the NFL, they have not been playing like it the last couple of weeks. Both quarterbacks have been relatively struggling with the amount of turnovers that they've been experiencing. I mean, Joe Burrow had 2 interceptions last week. One of them was a pick six. Josh Allen had an absolutely atrocious interception against the Bears last week. Granted, the Bills won by 3 touchdowns in that game, but it's these turnover issues that just seem to plague both quarterbacks right now. And fortunately for, I'd say, both quarterbacks, that they have a good enough team around them to still get these W's on the board. But I think when it comes to this game specifically, I think it's going to come down to who's going to make the most amount of mistakes at the quarterback position. And to be quite honest with you, honestly, it's kind of both. The only factor that I have in Buffalo's favor over Cincinnati is I think that Buffalo just has a better performing defense. And like you said, that they've been winning more of these games recently by a wider margin. When it comes to the Bengals, they've been winning these games, but it's come at a very close margin in some of these games. So overall, I have the Bills winning this one. It is going to be a close game, though. And I'm of the mindset that this is not going to be a showdown where both quarterbacks are lighting it up and this is going to be like a 41-38 score. I don't see that happening. Usually when it comes to this point in the season, weather's going to play a factor, and you don't necessarily see quarterbacks lighting it up like they may have done 2 months ago when it was relatively warmer. And I think when it comes to this game in particular for Buffalo, Kev, you basically hit it on the head as far as I'm concerned. I mean, I think that they have to run the ball effectively, and they have to create a well-balanced attack on the ground. And when you have Devin Singletary and James Cook combined for basically over 200 yards rushing, and then you have some yards that Josh Allen could get from scrambling out of the pocket, extending plays with his feet, I think that's going to be a formula that they can work with in this game. And then you combine that with what they're able to do defensively. I do think that Buffalo is going to be able to force a turnover or two against Joe Burrow, just because Burrow's a great quarterback. I don't want to lose sight of that. But Burrow has these moments where he just throws these inadvertent interceptions, and it has cost them. When I look at the Bengals last week, the Bengals were up 22 to nothing at halftime against New England. And the second half of the game, they couldn't score any points against New England. And New England has a good defense. So you give credit where it's due. New England definitely deserves that. But, when you get shut out in the second half and you're up by 3 possessions, and you barely win the game. New England had a very good chance to win that game at the end. It's just Cincinnati's defense came up with a really good stop at the end to get them that win. But overall, it's like, you're struggling against a team like New England and you're going up against a team like Buffalo. That presents an entirely different challenge. And I think that Cincinnati has a very good chance to win this game. I don't want to lose sight of that. I just think that Buffalo has a better chance to win simply just because I think they're a more well-rounded unit than the Bengals right now. I think the Bengals, as far as I see it, they're a good team. They're a really good team. They've been very hot the last couple of weeks, but I just think that with what Josh Allen can do, with what their run game could do, and their defense forcing turnovers, you could basically kind of say the same thing with the Bengals defense as well. They can force turnovers as well. I just think that Buffalo is going to create more opportunities for them to capitalize on and take advantage of than the Bengals. And unfortunately for the Bengals, I think they're going to fall a little bit short in this one. If I had to put a score on it, I'm going to say that the Bills win this one by about 3 or 4 points. At most, I think this maybe is a touchdown win for the Bills. If I had to put a score on it, I'm going to say they win this one by the score of like 28-24. I think this is going to come down to the end, but I think it's going to come down to Joe Burrow is going to make a timely error. He's going to make a mistake, and I think the Bills are going to capitalize on it. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bills defense comes up with some sort of like game-winning interception or some sort of defensive stop that gets them this win at the end. I think this is going to be a great game nonetheless. It has huge implications for the number one seed in the AFC, and I think, Kev, I'm with you 100% on this one. I think Buffalo bumps up to like a 13-3 record, and I think as far as I see it, they still have a very good pathway forward to get that number one seed and get the only bye in the first round of the playoffs, since we only have the one bye for the number one seed instead of two compared to years back. So I got the Bills in this one. I think this is going to be a great game nonetheless, and I hope everybody enjoys it as much as I will, because this is going to be a great game.
Potential game of the year, obviously. I mean, when you talk about, again, two MVP caliber teams, just very, very, very similar in record. I feel like this, if it turned out to be a shootout, I'd be happier than a pig in shit.
Oh,
Because
100%.
again, I just want to see them just go off. I want to see Joe go for like 4 touchdowns. I want to see Josh toss up like 4 touchdowns. It's just genuinely, I don't believe that's going to be the case, and we'll just have to kind of see what happens with how the game kind of proceeds and how it goes. But Kyle's made some great points in terms of Joe's late forced turnovers in the last couple of games. It's just very uncharacteristic of him. And I don't know if that's him trying to force things. I don't know if that's disagreements with the play calling or if he's just not seeing receivers or just quite frankly not maybe seeing defenders. But there have been some instances where you kind of look sideways like, where was that going?
Well, Kev, kind of look at it from this perspective. You know, I mean, we grew up during the era of Peyton Manning and Tom Brady. It wasn't necessarily like them running running and gunning, throwing for like 45, 50 touchdowns at first. Like,
No.
they made their fair share of mistakes early on. And when it comes to Joe Burrow and Josh Allen, Kev, they're still, I don't want to say like they're in the infancy of their NFL career, but they're still in the early stage of their career yet. And to be quite honest with you, I don't think either of them are in their primes yet. I could say maybe Josh Allen is kind of approaching that point just because he's getting into his mid 20s. Joe Burrow's still relatively young. And I think, both of these guys are going to be major players when it comes to the top quarterbacks in the AFC for the next 5 to 10 years. But there's going to be mistakes by both quarterbacks. And we've seen that this year. And it's not uncharacteristic to see that, especially with guys that are still kind of like within that, what, 3 to 5 year window of them being in the NFL. I think
True.
really once you get about like 6, 7 years into the league, you really get your feet underneath you. That's when I think you're really going to see just more consistent play and less turnovers from both quarterbacks. I think both quarterbacks are still kind of figuring out. And look, these guys are always going to take chances. Sometimes you're going to put up a 50-50 ball and you give your receiver a chance to get it. And sometimes it doesn't work out. Sometimes you just make an inadvertent throw and it works against you. Like, it happens. But as far as I see it, I mean, this is going to be a great game. No matter what happens in the quarterback matchup, I think, when it comes to these two teams specifically, these teams could legitimately be the number one seed in the AFC as far as I see it. Obviously, you still have to contend with the Chiefs. The Chiefs are still one of the top dogs in the AFC with Patrick Mahomes leading the way. But I'm never going to count both of these guys out. I think both of
Never.
these guys have earned the respect that they deserve. I mean, Joe went to a Super Bowl last year. I mean, Josh Allen pretty much had the game-winning touchdown to Gabriel Davis in the AFC divisional round last year. And if it wasn't for a miracle drive by Patrick Mahomes with like 13 seconds left to drive them down 60 yards for a game-tying field goal, we could have had a Joe Burrow, Josh Allen AFC championship game last year. And that would have been phenomenal. I know we got Patrick Mahomes and Joe Burrow, and I'm not sliding at that either.
Hell no.
But, I mean, overall, when it comes to the AFC and the quarterback competition, I think it's going to be absolutely elite, for the next 5 to 10 years. It's just when it comes to these mistakes that they've been making, I think that just kind of comes with the territory. They're still adjusting. And I think it will get to a point when their overall comfort will improve as time goes along. And then you just kind of learn from the mistakes.
Fair
It
enough.
just it comes with the
I,
territory. It doesn't surprise me that both guys are turning the ball over a little bit more than we've been normally accustomed to. I mean, Brady and Manning had years where they turned the ball over 14, 15 times when it came to interceptions. That happened. It wasn't like Brady and Manning were putting up 50 touchdowns and they only had like 8 interceptions at first.
Ratios like that aren't exactly common, and they definitely weren't common back then when we
like
were growing up.
yeah, but it took them like 4 to 5 years, maybe even 6. Because I know Brady took like 6 years to get to that point. But I mean, Peyton Manning started out his career with what, like 20 some odd interceptions.
I think 27 or 26,
I,
which was an all-time record for a while until Russell Wilson tied
I,
him, I think.
the Jameis had his famous season where he threw 30.
No, I'm
But
saying for a rookie,
for a
like
rookie,
Peyton broke the rookie record for most interceptions in a year at one point. I forget what it was. It was in the
imagine
20s.
imagine if that had happened today. He get killed. He get
Yeah,
absolutely killed. And I will say, give credit to the Colts coaching staff for hanging in there with him, letting him make the mistakes. Because I think if it had been today, I think a lot of GMs and a lot of front offices probably would have cut bait. They would have cut ties. You
maybe.
have somebody that is that is lacking in that type of production. I mean, look at Zach Wilson. I mean,
That's different though.
I understand that he's struggling. It's just 25 plus interceptions in a rookie year. I mean, I don't think a lot of GMs, I don't think a lot of teams would have the patience for it. Unless that they genuinely believe that they can work through those quarterback issues, especially when it comes to a rookie. But maybe that's just me. I'm just kind of, maybe it's just conjecture, but I don't know if teams would have the patience for that if somebody was throwing 25 interceptions in their rookie year. I just don't know.
Yeah.
Unless they were fully committed to the guy. But nonetheless, I think this is going to be a great battle when we got Josh Allen and Joe Burrow going at it on Monday. I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And I hope everybody gets a chance to watch it, especially when it's in prime time. But
Hell yeah.
with that said, our last topic of conversation in the NFL is going to be towards J.J. Watt. J.J. Watt did announce that he is going to retire at the end of this NFL season. He plays for the Arizona Cardinals, and they have no chance to make it into the playoffs. So there will not be any sort of magical playoff run potentially or hypothetically for the Cardinals this year. So once Week 18 comes to a close, it will cap a pretty significant career for J.J. Watt. Obviously, he started with the Houston Texans, played there for the majority of his career, and is going to finish it out as an Arizona Cardinal. So, Kev, just to kick this one to you, what are your overall thoughts about J.J. Watt's career coming to an end now that he is essentially retiring within a week and a half to 2 weeks from now?
I mean, as a fan of a team that had to play him twice a year, the man was just a constant nuisance to any offensive coordinator, to any quarterback. He was just a nightmare to try to scheme against and to try to prepare for because he was able to shed so many blocks. He was able to get to the quarterback. He was able to tackle for loss. I mean, in some instances, he was even able to score touchdowns for the offense. J.J. Watt was a once in a lifetime generational pass rusher because of what he was able to do um, with his technique. I mean, the guy was just he had a pretty bad rookie year, and he finally found a way to make it click. In the I think I want to say the second half of the year, he just kind of turned it up, and he was just kind of creating stuff. And the JJ SWAT terminology came, and then I think he had a couple of sacks in one game where he found a way to turn it around. And again, Houston was a dying organization. I mean, obviously, right now they still are without Deshaun Watson, but the man found a way to make a bad team competitive. He found a way to make a well known bad team and entertaining to watch on the defensive side. I mean, he was getting sacks what seemed to be almost every game. And I mean, just to go over some of his accolades, I mean, he was a five-time Proler, five-time Pro Bowler, five-time All Pro. He was in the All 2010s team, Defensive Player of the Year a multitude of times. Walter Payton man of the year. Over 111 sacks and still counting because obviously he still has 2 games, so he could easily eclipse 112, 113 or whatever have you. I mean, 27 forced fumbles for his career, over 400 tackles, and the man was always hurt. Torn pec, messed up his knee. I mean, multiple concussions. J.J. Watt was a staple of consistency and overcoming a multitude of injuries so many different times, but he still was able to compete competitively. And I mean, like I said, man, the impact he had for Houston and the impact he was able to provide for Arizona while he was there was nothing short of incredible. What an amazing leader, a great model to kind of like uh, model your game after, or should I say, role model to model your game after for anybody up and coming. And I mean, the Houston fans booed him on draft night when he was drafted 10 or 11th overall, and he found a way to make all of them regret the boos. So shout out to JJ on an incredible career. You will be missed. The impact you had on the game, not only on but off the field, was incredible. And good luck to you in retirement, and congratulations on being a new dad. I will say, if he were to come out of retirement because of how much peak physical form he was he's still in, I wouldn't be surprised. Like to make a run somewhere down the field like next year for like a Super Bowl or something like that, or maybe even a year from now or something like that. I don't know, but again, JJ Watt, congratulations on an incredible career, a definite Hall of Famer.
Yeah, Kev, I mean, you pretty much laid it out as best as I could. I mean, when it comes to JJ Watt, I mean, Kev, the guy is just a freak of nature. I mean, I
Yeah,
understand that he's at the end of his career, but Kev, I think if I have the stats right, I believe he's the only player in NFL history to have multiple seasons of 20 plus sacks. I think he actually holds the NFL record in that regard. And then not only that, I believe he also has um I think he has 2 seasons, and I believe it's also another NFL record where he led the league in sacks twice. Um,
crazy.
the fact that he was so consistent, and despite the fact that he had so many injuries throughout his career, is astonishing. And to play for an organization like the Houston Texans, that's just a bad luck of the draw as far as I'm concerned. And I will say there was a point in time, probably I would say in the early 2010s, maybe like on the beginning edge of like the mid 2010s, where the Texans were a legitimate team in the AFC. And it was kind of funny, Kev. I remember a specific game where JJ Watt, they were going up against New England, and I believe it was a Monday night game. And this is when I thought Houston was really one of those top teams in the AFC, and they brought a lot of confidence and swagger into that game. They were bringing, I think they all wore like Leatherman jackets going into that game, and even though that it didn't work out for Houston in that game, I think the Patriots beat them pretty handily in that game. It it didn't really matter the result as far as I'm concerned. It was really just the swagger and the confidence that they brought on the field. Granted, it didn't work out, but I thought that JJ was just one of those guys that you always had to account for on the defensive side of the ball, no matter who, no matter who they went up against, and the consistency that he was able to establish year in and year out. I mean, it was kind of infectious because now you see TJ Watt, his brother, just going out there and absolutely dominating for the Pittsburgh Steelers. It's absolutely phenomenal what this Watt family has been able to generate when it comes to NFL talent. And JJ was the one that got it started off for him. So, when it comes to JJ, obviously this is not like a fairy tale ending where he's going to win a Super Bowl and ride out into the sunset as a Super Bowl champion. But I think the biggest thing for me is he might finally have a chance to walk away from the game healthy. And, it kind of shows because I mean, you could tell that he's definitely earned some scars along the way in his NFL career. I know like usually he has like this huge arm brace on one of his arms. It's either his left or his right arm. I just forget which arm it is. But not only that, I mean, he's had to deal with leg injuries, knee issues. I mean, it's really been kind of like a cascade of injuries that he sustained throughout his NFL career. And to me, I think that was really one of the biggest hindrances when it came to his career overall. It's just the injuries just kind of bit him in the ass at the wrong time. But even with that said, he had a hell of an NFL career. And obviously, I wish he were in a situation where he was going to win a Super Bowl. Unfortunately, it's not going to work out that way. But I think the biggest thing for him at this point is I think he could walk away from the game as healthy as he can this season. Hopefully he can, and it doesn't end in some sort of like, bad injury to cap his career. But overall, I think he has a bright future outside of football. Obviously, like you said, Kev, a brand new father, and I think he's going to pay a lot of time and attention to that. And I think, as far as I see it, he had a hell of a career, and it's something to be ashamed of. When you play in the NFL for a decade plus, you have over 100 sacks. You're regarded as one of the forces of nature when it comes to defensive pass rushes in the past decade. I mean, that says something. So, I mean, as far as I see it, JJ had an outstanding career. Unfortunately, he's not a Super Bowl champion. I think that would have just been something nice that he could add to his resume. But as far as I see it, he probably got to live out his dream to the best of his abilities. And I think overall, I think he could walk away from the game looking back at it with a smile. Even despite all the injuries that he sustained, I think that he got to live his dream and did it extremely effectively. So overall, I give a tip to the cap to JJ. I think he's earned it. And who knows? He may even find himself in Canton one day with what he was able to do throughout those 2010s. I think that he's definitely made a case for it. But overall, if I just had to round this out, just congrats to JJ Watt on a fantastic career. And I hope nothing but the best for the guy as he continues his life beyond football.
Yeah. No, I mean, again, being a Colts fan and
It had to be a
literally,
nuisance. Like that was a nuisance, like you
oh,
said. He
it
was
was like,
he was
what
nasty, bro.
side is he lining up on? Is he going to be a DT? Is he going to be a DN? Is even when he dropped back into coverages, there were times where he'd bat balls down and even on the occasion get an interception. You're just
He
looking
would.
at it like, is there something he can't do? Like 6'5", 200 some odd pounds. Like, how is it that you're that quick off the line of scrimmage, that strong to move tackles, tight ends, and just destroy running backs
Mm-hmm.
and still get to the quarterback and then tackle for loss? I mean, he's a dude, some of the technique that he's able to do, even this season, like you've seen. I don't know if you saw last week's game against Tampa where he was just able to get off the guard to where he faked out, swam over, and was able to get into the backfield within what seemed to be a blink of an eye. But
Like a half second.
it's players like him that make me love defense so much more than offense because it's like you don't expect someone of that size to be able to do things like that. And defensive linemen, defensive tackles can change a game with just plays like that. Confidence, turnovers, tackle for losses. I mean, again, I'm not going to go on and on. The point is, JJ Watt will 100% have a gold jacket this time in maybe 5, 6 years. I think so. It's without a doubt.
It's just I guess one more point to make about JJ. I could never question his effort. That
Hell
dude
no.
was going to be running and gunning, give it 110, 120% every single play. And I remember, I think this is in one of his last seasons with the Texans. He had a post-game press conference at the end of the year. And the Texans sucked. They were like 4-11. I mean, sub 500 is an understatement. They were just one of the worst teams in the NFL. And he was basically giving this diatribe, but I think it was an accurate diatribe, where he basically was questioning guys on whether or not that they brought the necessary effort to be able to go out there and play football. And it was simply just because it's like, look, we have fans, speaking about the Texans fans, that are showing up to the games knowing that we suck. And they have to struggle to watch the game as, we struggle on the field and we just can't perform to our expectations. And he was basically putting it on his teammates. It's like, look, you have to step up and you have to go above and beyond, to go out there and win football games. And if he didn't see you playing up to standard or playing beyond that standard, he didn't think that you deserved to be there. And, he was really of the mindset of, it's an honor and a privilege to play the game, but you have to go out there and show that every single week when you're out there on the field. And he's one of the very few players that I think ever really vocalized that in a post-game press conference, where it was like, no, like he was putting that standard on the players. It's like, this is the standard. If you don't reach it, you don't deserve to be here. And I think,
So
to be
much
quite honest,
respect for him after
I,
that conversation, bro.
I, I,
Ridiculous.
I think, to be honest with you, you don't really hear that often anymore. I mean,
Not
maybe
in this generation.
maybe privately, maybe like I think one example, maybe Buda Baker, where he really kind of put it on his teammates to step up to another level when he was just tired of losing. And I totally get it because the Cardinals. I mean, let's face it. I
And
mean,
Jamal Williams, I think it was last season or something like that. He was crying, or maybe Hard Knocks this season. I don't remember,
yeah,
but yeah, players like that are emotionally invested, vocal leaders, and aren't ashamed or scared to call out teammates that aren't participating or giving it their all. I mean, I mentioned this generation, and this is the literal last point before we go into our next topic. They're entitled. They feel like, oh, I made it here. I don't have to try anymore. I got my contract, so I don't need to put in all this effort. Or what is me putting my body on the line for a team that's eliminated from playoff contention, or whatever the list of excuses you can rattle off for athletes nowadays? Why would I do that? Because you made it. Because it's your job. Because
yeah,
you are a role model to kids and other people all around the world. Like people literally, like you said, your team sucks. They're paying to still come and see you, to put on a show, to be competitive. You don't just put on pads and a team's helmet logo, or a helmet with a logo on it, just to go out there and I'll put in. I'll try a couple
and,
plays.
and do it for the check. And trust me, like there are guys that just once they get that major contract, they do it for the check, and they kind of run through the motions. Kev, I mean, a, it's not really uncommon to see once guys get paid, they fall back.
Never
I
the
think they
same.
just kind of
Yep.
they just kind of go into the motions. They
Yep.
just kind of do it they do it for the check, and then basically within like 3 or 4 years after their contract, it's like they're satisfied. They're done. Like basically that one big contract is what they're playing for, and that's it. As far as they see it, like they're satisfied. But it's like, you have fans that are going out of their way to watch you play at a professional level. And the fact that JJ Watt was one of those players that actually stood up at the mic and put it out there to the world, it's like, guys, we have to be better than just going through the motions, because we have fans that are paying hundreds of dollars to watch us play every single week. And we're going to put out a shitty product by just going through the motions and lose the majority of our games. That's not acceptable. And honestly, nobody is above that. I don't care how much you're getting paid. I don't care what your status is in the NFL.
Facts.
Like, if you don't show up to play and you don't bring the effort that's necessary week in and week out, you don't deserve to be there, no matter how much you're getting paid. So, the fact that JJ put that type of comment out to the world in a public forum instead of a private one, that was, I think, the last couple of years he was in Houston. It was just something that I always look back to, and I look back as a very fond memory of JJ Watt. I mean, obviously, what he did on the field speaks for itself, but I think it spoke to a different level when he brought that to basically a public attention uh, on a subpar team where he knew the team wasn't going to go anywhere, and I can appreciate that, because it's like I said at the top, I'll never question the guy's effort ever.
Nope.
The guy was always a constant, no matter if he was 75% or 100%. The guy would try to put his team in a position to win every single week. So I give the guy kudos for that. But with that said, we are going to transition to very
More of a passing, more of a
yeah.
mention
I
while go. We don't want to dwell on negatives.
yeah. I mean, it's very rare that Kevin and I go out of our way to talk about the game of soccer, but I think we definitely deserve to have this definitely have to have this quick mention of Pele. Pele is one of the best soccer players that's ever played the game, and unfortunately, he passed away at the age of 82. Kev, I mean, he's the originator. I mean, he was the original GOAT. I mean, king of the beautiful game. I mean, whatever sort of description that you want to place upon Pele in a positive light, he represented that, and probably more than that. And I mean, the guy won 3 World Cups for Brazil. I mean, he's the only player in the entire history of soccer to ever do that. I know that there's some great soccer players out there. I know Messi just won his first World Cup. Pele won 3. It's absolutely nuts, the level of consistency that he brought to the game. And I know he wasn't in our generation. He came before our time. But, somebody had to set the standard for where soccer is at now. And Pele was that guy as far as I'm concerned. So, Kev, just give me your overall thoughts on Pele's legacy. And unfortunately, it comes on his passing at the age of 82, though.
I mean, Kyle laid it out. 3 World Cups are obviously the original OG. I mean, the guy was able to carry a nation on his shoulders every. I mean, World Cups are every 4 years. He was able to keep that level of consistency for 12 years. I mean, he is arguably, if not literally, the greatest Brazilian soccer player of all time. I mean, people can make the argument now because, Neymar, in terms of being athletically gifted and his ability to touch the ball. But again, until Neymar is able to hoist 3 World Cups for his nation, I don't think that's going to be a conversation that people want to have. So, I mean, what he's been able to do for the sport of soccer, what he's been able to do afterwards in terms of for the community, for younger people across different countries, the impact that he's had overall to the game of soccer, how he's been able to communicate to the younger generation. I mean, Pele was an incredible role model in that sense, and what he was able to do for the game on and off of the field. But literally, I mean, it's like you said, when you talk about the Mount Rushmore of football, he is the first name you would probably think of outside of Ronaldinho, Messi, Ronaldo. I mean, like everybody has their different names for their goats, right? But you can't talk to a soccer fan, a soccer enthusiast, or a soccer connoisseur and not mention the name of Pele. So it is sad. It is unfortunate that his passing comes around the holiday season as well. But I mean, at 82 years old, I would assume based on what we've seen with the media, the internet, and what we were able to portray in some of his highlights, because obviously Kyle and I weren't around. I would say that he lived a pretty good life. So I mean, rest in peace to the greatest soccer player, and hopefully his legacy continues to live on and many others.
Yeah, but I just want to give you just a quick rundown on what is on his own Wikipedia page. I just want to give you just a quick rundown of this. Yeah, he was listed in like the top. I think Time had a list of like the 100 most influential people of the 20th century. He was on that list. You know, I don't know how many human beings there were in the 20th century. There were a lot. The fact that he was in the top 100 is just utterly insane. It really kind of goes to show his impact that he brought not only to soccer, not only to Brazil, but the entire world based on just his overall stature from the game that he played. Kev, he played in 1,363 games. He scored 1,279 goals. He was basically scoring a goal a game. That average is utterly insane. And granted, I know that it was before our time. I fully understand that. But still, like, when you're scoring a goal a game, basically, that's insane. There's a very, very small minority of players that ever do that in any sport. In the world of soccer, I mean, it's utterly unheard of. And not only that, he was voted the player of the excuse me, he was voted world player of the century by FIFA. Not just of the decade, of the century. You go from 1901 to 1999 or 1900 to 1999. He's the number one guy. I mean, the name speaks for itself. I mean, like you said, Kev, I mean, the guy is without a doubt the greatest Brazilian soccer player that's ever played the game. And as far as I see it, depending on who you ask, if you talk to somebody who's probably like above 40, they're probably going to say Pele is the greatest soccer player ever, just because that was probably the person that they could identify with. And I think if you talk to somebody who's probably 40 and younger, it's probably Messi, since he just won that World Cup a couple of weeks ago with Argentina. But I mean, as far as I'm concerned, when it comes to the game that is played right now, the modern day soccer, Pele is the originator of that. And it's kind of funny. Just I think we kind of get caught in this mindset of prisoner of the moment, where Messi is obviously getting a lot of shine and respect based on what he did with Argentina with winning one World Cup. The fact that Pele did it not once, not twice, but three separate times is utterly astonishing. And unfortunately, it takes his death for us to talk about him, just because we don't really talk about soccer a lot. But I think it kind of goes without saying, Pele is probably one of the most influential figures to come out of the sports realm ever. You know, there's been some great players that have come from different respective sports all across the world. Pele is one of those guys that is just iconic, not only just in Brazil but around the world. And I know that um, that his loss is definitely going to be it's going to be a tough hit for Brazil, just because of what his stature is to that country. But just to kind of wrap this up, Pele is just it's Pele. Like, his name speaks for itself. And honestly, I'll leave it like this. If I could just literally just name off somebody's name, and it's just their first name, and you know who it is, you don't even have to say the last name, that puts you in a whole different stratosphere. You know, because to Pele, the name speaks for itself. And the guy earned it. Not just in the realm of soccer, but probably what he did outside of soccer as well, because that guy basically carried a whole country on his back when he played. It just dude was phenomenal. And obviously rest in peace to him. And fortunately, he was able to live a very successful life. And I think for him, there's probably no regrets at the end.
Not at
But
all.
no, I think it was probably appropriate to give the man his respect, obviously posthumously, now that he's unfortunately passed away. But honestly, I mean, what a life the guy lived. I mean, it kind of goes without saying. But Kev, we're reaching the end of the episode. We got two more segments to knock out. We're gonna go over our best of and worst of 2022. So basically, what we're gonna do, you guys, is we're just going to go over who we thought were the top performers of 2022. We'll go over the worst performers of 2022. It could be an individual, it could be an overall team. Kevin's going to go over the best of. I'll go over the worst of. So, Kev, I'm going to give you the floor on this one. Who were your top performers that you could look back to in the year of 2022?
I mean, my top performers easily for me are definitely going to be the Golden State Warriors overcoming the odds and winning their fourth championship in the last, what is it, 7 or 8 years. Obviously, everybody thought they were washed. I mean, Steph was never able to get the Finals MVP. Clay was coming off of multiple injuries. Draymond is trash. KD's not there. Andrew Wiggins was never worth the number one overall pick. All the overhype with Jordan Poole, and they win the chip. You know what I'm saying? They come and they beat a good Boston team, and they find a way to put that fourth ring on their hand, and it was very well deserved. I think that they overcame a lot of adversity that season. They definitely silenced a lot of the haters, and I think that they rightfully deserve to hoist up the trophy and be listed as one of the better, if not one of the best teams of 2022 in all of sports. Then you go into baseball. Aaron Judge, he was offered a mediocre deal compared to what he ended with for $213 million to start the year. If I'm not mistaken, at some point he got that in March. Turns it down, bets on himself, and breaks the AL home run record with 62 home runs, wins the AL MVP, and carries the Yankees into the ALCS. Granted, the result wasn't what I wanted. It wasn't what any Yankee fan wanted. But in terms of an athlete to go out there and really just bet on everything that you possibly have at 30 years old to say, I'm turning this down, and I definitely am going to compete for a better contract. 9 years, $360 million later. the Yankees got their guy, and Aaron Judge has an incredible historic season. So, I mean, athlete wise, Aaron Judge had an absolutely phenomenal year. And then in terms of an overall country, I know this is a lot more recently. So, excuse me, a lot more recent, but I'm going to go with Argentina and Messi winning the World Cup. They haven't won since 1986. Messi has come very, very close, I believe, one or two times in his career in terms of playing for Argentina. They hoist up their trophy, beating France in penalty kicks, despite Mbappe scoring three goals and one of them being a PK in penalty kicks. I can't really make an argument, man. I know that we talked about the Golden State Warriors having the impact in the NBA and being one of the best teams, but in terms of on a global scale, for Argentina to finally hoist up that trophy against the juggernaut opponent that is France and overcoming all the odds and Messi saying that this was potentially his last World Cup, I think that that is enough for me to go out and say that that was a top performance. Again, although it was just a few weeks ago, that was 100% a top performance by the country of Argentina, led by Lionel Messi.
Yeah, Kev. I mean, I think when it comes to those three individual performers or teams, however you look at it, I think that it's appropriate. I think with Golden State, the fact that they were able to recapture another NBA title when, to be quite honest with you, I think a lot of people had kind of written off Golden State with their championship window coming to a close, just because injuries looked like they were becoming too much of a factor for Golden State. Obviously, age was a factor, and the fact that they were able to go up against a team like the Boston Celtics and beat them in the manner that they did, I think that's something that I'll always look back to in good standing with them. And I'll never forget. I think ESPN gave the Celtics like an 85% chance to win that series before that series started. They gave Golden State no chance to win that series, as far as I saw it, which I thought was disrespectful.
Crazy.
But the fact that they were able to go out there and just establish that championship pedigree that they've largely maintained since 2014, 2015, it's really just a testament to them. And I think it's definitely worth it. I mean, obviously, when it comes to Aaron Judge, what can you say? The guy sets the AL home run record. I mean, that record had stood for how long, Kev?
60
I mean,
since 1961. So I mean,
it's
whew,
50. It's like 60
61
years.
years.
It's absolutely insane what Judge was able to do. Obviously, it didn't result in a World Series championship for the Yankees, but nonetheless, I mean, when it comes to an individual season in the American League, I mean, you're talking about a lifetime from the last AL home run leader to this one. It's absolutely phenomenal what Judge and what Judge did, and I think he definitely deserved that contract extension from the Yankees. And I know that for you that was a little bit iffy after the postseason had ended the way it did for the Yankees. Um, I mean, overall, I thought you pretty much hit the nail on the head with Argentina and Messi. They obviously deserve the credit that they get just because Messi finally captures that elusive World Cup final victory. Honestly, the way that I've seen Argentina celebrate a World Cup is unlike anything I've ever seen before. I mean, I think it's been probably 2 weeks since they've won that World Cup, and I don't think they've stopped. I mean, I was watching videos when the team got back probably like 7 to 10 days ago. Kev, there were millions of people in the street. I mean, you had overpasses, you had highways, you had streets that were literally filled with millions of people in Buenos Aires. It was absolutely insane. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, I've seen Super Bowl uh, parades. I've seen teams win championships in the United States, and trust me, there's been a decent showing from the fans. It pales in comparison to what Argentina uh, did for their country, and the country is just celebrating. They're on an absolute high as far as I've seen it, and I think it's well deserved. And this is the unfortunate part about 2022. We have to kick it to the worst performers of 2022, and Kev, give me the run up to this one.
I mean, so Kyle, I mean, with 2022 having ups and downs, what are your top three worst performances of the year?
I'm not really going to go in any specific order, but if I had to give just the three off the top of my list right here, I have to go with the Los Angeles Rams, Russell Wilson, and the Los Angeles Dodgers. And it may seem like I'm kind of digging at Los Angeles because I got the Rams and the Dodgers in this list, but I think there's definitely some criticism that they rightly deserve based on how this year has gone from them. I will start with the Rams. I mean, the Rams, I will give them credit. They started off the year very well with winning a Super Bowl championship against the Cincinnati Bengals to start the year. But after that, it's been just an absolute disaster. This was a team that had back to back Super Bowl aspirations, and with the roster that they had constructed, and obviously the core guys that they had maintained from that team last year, it looked like the Rams were in prime position to go after another Super Bowl run this year, and it ended in outright catastrophe. They are the worst team in the NFC West. It's been probably the biggest drop off that I've seen from a Super Bowl champion to the next season, with just the incompetence that they've had as a whole. Uh, the defense has been bad. Matt Stafford has looked inconsistent. Sean McVay's coaching ability looks like it has taken a major hit this year. And it just, from a big picture perspective, the entire season for the Rams has been an absolute letdown. And from it to come from a Super Bowl championship just the year prior is utterly astonishing to me in a negative fashion. And as far as I see it, they definitely deserve to be in this unfortunate category of being one of the worst performers of 2022 in the sports world. After that, I got to kick it to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson, with the level of play that he has brought this year, it's just been an outright travesty this year. There was a lot of hope for the Denver Broncos to be potentially a Super Bowl caliber team this year when the Denver Broncos made the trade with Seattle to bring Russell Wilson into the fold. And you could tell that the Broncos put a lot of investment into Russell Wilson for the foreseeable future. They gave him a 5-year, $245 million contract after that trade was finalized. That's a major extension to give to Russell Wilson. And he has followed it up with just a subpar year. A subpar year is kind of putting it mildly. It's just been an atrocious year for Russell Wilson this year. He has 12 touchdowns to 9 interceptions. The offense is dead last in points per game. And there have been multiple times where Russell Wilson and the offensive players and the offensive coaching staff have just been kind of going at it. And it obviously bubbled over and just an outright atrocious loss to the Los Angeles Rams. And I mean, I just brought up the Rams just a couple of seconds ago. The Rams are a terrible team. They got beat by Baker Mayfield by like 35 points. The Broncos gave up 51 points, and I believe the Broncos only scored like 14 or 17 points in that game. It's just an outright travesty with Russell Wilson. Obviously, he has taken a major step back. It may look like the Denver Broncos are regretting that trade with Seattle this past offseason. And when it comes to Russell Wilson specifically, I mean, he's the leader of the offense, and he has failed in every single regard that I can imagine with him this season. It's been a major letdown year for him and the Broncos, and I think it's well deserved to be in this unfortunate category once again of being one of the worst performers of 2022. And then the last one, when it comes to worst performers of 2022, is going to be the Los Angeles Dodgers. The Dodgers were the cream of the crop in the National League this year in Major League Baseball, and they fell incredibly short by getting upset by the San Diego Padres in the divisional round of the NL playoffs. It was just utterly shocking to see a team that had, I mean, just absolutely ran through the regular season. You know, when you see a team get over 100 wins in Major League Baseball, that's an incredible season. And usually it warrants some sort of playoff run. But the Dodgers were in a completely different stratosphere. The Dodgers won over 110 games. And, you know, when you look at the entire landscape or the entire history of Major League Baseball, there are very few teams that have ever been able to put up that type of winning percentage where they're winning basically damn near 70 to 75% of their games. And for it to end in just an utter embarrassment in the essentially take away the wild card round. Essentially the first round of the major league playoffs when it comes to all the teams that are in that moment. It's just an utter travesty as far as I see it. And you know, the Dodgers are one of those teams that are always sort of in that World Series type of contention. And I'll say this, I mean, they were one of the teams that I had a pretty big expectation to go all the way to the World Series and potentially win it. And for them to lose the way in the manner that they did, it was extremely disappointing. And to be quite honest with you, I don't know if they're going to be able to bounce back for something like that. I mean, they still have a good overall team, and you can never really count them out. But I don't know how you're going to be able to bounce back from winning 110 games and you lose in the first round of the playoffs to the Padres. And maybe they can get it back, but it's going to be a tough one nonetheless. So that pretty much rounds out who I consider the top three worst performers of 2022 in the sports world. Definitely the Los Angeles Rams. Russell Wilson is in that conversation. And to round it out, the Los Angeles Dodgers. But that's who I have as the worst of 2022 as far as I see it.
The year's been stacked with good and bad performances from players, teams falling short, teams overachieving. I mean, again, it overall sports have just been an incredible asset for the year as a whole, keeping us distracted and keeping us focused on something other than our daily life problems. So, no matter the year, no matter what happens, sports will always be there. And I know I speak for Kyle and myself when I say, thank God for sports, because they keep us happy and distracted and busy in our everyday lives. And again, no matter if our teams are horrible, if the teams that we support, fantasy football, whatever it is, we are always going to be entertained. And we're just grateful for another year in the books. I know that we are at the end of our episode here, so I will just kind of leave it on this note and let Kyle close it out. Please be safe on New Year's Eve, everybody, despite the plans, despite whatever it is you're going to do. Don't be crazy. Don't be stupid. We all know, again, we're not going to go and advertise it, but if you're going to go and partake in those after late night activities, have a ride for yourself. Have somebody pick you up, call an Uber. Let's not be crazy. We all got to be safe so we can make it into 2023. Let's not do something stupid to end 2022.
Yeah, exactly. And obviously, I mean, Kev, we're at the end of the year. I mean, it's been a phenomenal year for the podcast. Obviously, we've seen a tremendous amount of growth this past year, and it's really been on the backs of the support that we've gotten along the way. And honestly, I just want to take the time to be able to extend my sincere gratitude and I would say just overall appreciation towards the people that have supported us along the way. Kevin and I have been doing this for almost 2 years at this point, and it's just very appreciative. I'm very appreciative of the support that we've gotten this year, and we hope that it continues into 2023. And I think we definitely have some things planned out for 2023 that you guys will be excited about. We'll probably get into that later at some point. But like Kevin said, obviously, I hope that everybody has a very nice but safe New Year's Eve weekend. Hopefully, everybody has a good time. But like Kev said, got to be responsible, got to know the situation that you're in, and I hope that everybody can transition into 2023 and effectively start a new year. And honestly, let's kind of see where it goes from there. So I say it pretty much at the end of every episode. Obviously, appreciate you guys tuning in, whether it was watching us on YouTube or listening to us on the audio platforms. We definitely appreciate the support. We will be back in 2023. We will be starting off relatively early in January. Like we kind of said at the top, we're at the end of the NFL season, so we will start ramping up for the playoffs very soon. And I wouldn't be surprised, Kev, if we really start ramping up into some NBA content now that I'm not going to say the NFL content takes a backseat. It's just there won't be as much content to go through in the NFL now that, you're dealing with a limited amount of games once we get into that playoff format. So definitely expect a bump in our NBA content and maybe a hint of NHL as well if there's some interesting topics at play. But Kev, I got nothing here to say other than just hope you guys have a great New Year's weekend. Stay safe. Enjoy the weekend. And Kev, the floor is yours. I got nothing left to say.
All right. 2022 comes to an end. We'll be seeing you guys in 2023. Stay safe. Have a good time. We appreciate everything you guys have done, and we'll see you guys later.
Peace.